that when they designed the parking lot, they addressed the water permeability issue right there, so they didn't have the runoff. So it's a question of not pro-development or anti-development, but the question of being able to enable sound development so that we don't have the kind of issues. Because look, you know, if that sewage treatment plant goes, then we got some really serious issues. Thank you.
It's a very good letter. It goes to our Bob.
Thank you. Everybody can take a little break. Bob Fallon, 15th Avenue, a little break and a little bow. I was here last month for an important issue, like just practically like 8 feet of yellow painting to be done. I sent a letter to Chief Palmisano and a copy to Mayor Doherty, and I mailed it the night after that meeting, which was Thursday night. And at 11 o'clock the next morning, a car pulled up, somebody in a white shirt in it, they tell me. And a half hour later, at 11:30 Friday morning, that yellow stripe was painted. And I think a lot of people who frequent the establishments, as I mentioned in the letter, mainly the Boathouse and Bar A, were happy not to be caught in what looked like a perfect place to park a car, but have a ticket when they come back out of dinner. And it was very good, and I was very amazed, you know, that things could be done that quickly. I'm not know whether it was an accident or not, but the following day, Claire and Brian came, I think, to make sure everything was done properly, you know. Or was that the Saturday you were just canvassing and visiting? But you do remember that.
Yes.
And I got your name right this time. Thank you very, very much.
Oh, Bob. Yes.
Teddy Eamon. Oh, it's all right. That's all right. This should work. Thanks.
Part of my job.
Okay, I'm not that short. Teddy Eamon, Oakwood Avenue, Belmar. It's funny, Gene got up and spoke about McCleary, and it just jogged my memory for a lot of things. But living on Oakwood, I drive constantly past McCleary Park, and I have never seen it in more disrepair than it is now, of course. But I've never noticed it used more. It's the funniest thing this year. This summer, I said to Bill the other night, I said, there's like, you can't park anywhere in this park, you know, anywhere from like, 4 o'clock on through sunset. That place is mobbed. And I never saw it that way. And there's less place to walk there and everything. But Jean brings up a really good point, because she lives on 13th that way. And you've had 2 meetings about McCleary Park, and the invitations were given by the policemen just to us locals in Rhode Island Point. But Jean's got a connection there, a lot of people do, and McCleary Park is a town thing. And I really encourage, since money is going to be spent, that everyone be included in the plans. And I really resent, you had the last meeting in March, and Mr. Strauss and I spent over a week. I used to teach architecture. I did an architectural rendering to scale of McCleary Park. It took many, many hours. It had access for divers. It had a gazebo, so I'm really glad to hear you're gazebo friendly suddenly, because there's a beautiful sunset area at the westernmost point of McCleary Park that's perfect for a family gathering and a gazebo. It just screams gazebo. It was in my plans. So is the diving area, which would make it so much easier for Diver 2 and all the people every year who clean out the Shark River. The point is, you wouldn't even let me present it. All the time that Colleen spent sending out a flyer and it said, bring your ideas, and when Bill and I stood up with it, you wouldn't let me present it. Just because I disagreed with you in the past, you wouldn't let me present it at a meeting of my neighbors. And when I went around with the petition, it's funny, I ran into the 30 people that were at that meeting. They said, yeah, we remember you. You were the one that couldn't speak. I said, that's me. So I hope that we can be more open. about McCleary Park coming up in the future. The second thing, I didn't want to forget this. You said DCA is really follows up on all of the bonds to make sure they're being used for what the bonds were intended for. Can you give me an example? I mean, I've worked with DCA. I have never seen that. In your experience, what's one of the bonds that you've seen them do that? And who was doing it at DCA?
For local finance.
Yeah, but after you go to, you don't, first of all, you don't even have to present every bond to them. So they're not even aware of it,
No, you have to give their guidance.
Right, but who follows up on it for the local finance board? And when have you had that happen?
Well, we've never done anything. We've never done anything inappropriate.
Well, how would they know?
Well, if you floated a bond for $7 million, and the project was $6 million, and you still spent $7 million, they would know.
Yeah, but if you do a bond for capital expenditures for a hurricane, and there are none at that point, and they follow up and they find, everything from auto repair to wedding rings, how, who's not doing their job then?
Well, that was an emergency bond.
I know, but it specifically stated that it had to be for storm-related things or for capital improvements related to Sandy. I'm just saying, I haven't seen where they follow up on any of that.
I would tell you, if you don't think DCA is doing a good job, you're free to contact them yourself.
Oh, I have. and no, believe me, I have. I mean, come on, the director's right over here in Lake Como. I can walk to his house and talk to him. So, but they say they have no staff.
You walk to them and talk to them.
I do, and they say they have no staff, so I don't know how they follow up on this stuff. And the last thing is, I got all the mailings, and you can take criticism about not corresponding, but you just did overkill. 46-cent stamps for 3 mailings. The other things were either volunteers for Sandy. You got flyers out every day, right? I mean, volunteers went around, right, Jennifer? That's how you got them. The police went out with the other flyers, but this was 46 cents for 5,000 households. That's $2,300 for one of your mailings.
But, yeah.
46 cents times 5,000 is 20. Yeah.
That darn post office.
No, it's that darn spending that I'm warning you. It's just out of control, and that's within from the 20th to the 27th. You spent, between the mailers, the envelopes, and the postage, like 10 grand, and that's just peeing away money. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Janice.
Good evening, Janice Q. Blackburn, River Court. I have 3 things. First of all, not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before, since Ted mentioned the Shark River cleanup, I was very impressed with 12 teenagers and some adults from several towns, and I was very happy to help them with their cleanup of the Shark River. Number 2, Dot Taylor, former First Lady of Belmar, will be very proud of all of you tonight. And number 3, summer's over, and we're a little less than last year and compared to what we did with the beach funds. But compared to most of the other towns around here, we did wonderfully. And the only reason that we did so good is because of your commitment and savvy in getting our boardwalk built. Hopefully the businesses did just as well as we did, and Belmar looked beautiful. So now summer's over, and we can enjoy our Belmar boardwalk. Thanks.
Janice was at one of the Belmar residents was at the fundraiser that they held at the headline as well. So thank you for coming back. Yes, Dave.
Hi, David Shack, 302 C Street. That's okay, I'm probably gonna have to come back because I've got a few things, gonna go in chronological order from the beginning of the meeting. I have some questions for Mike Rappel. I know I don't live in the area of Lake Como, but I am a taxpayer and we are going to be asked to pay for this, so I thought it would have been a good idea to let all Belmar residents ask them a question and not just the people living in Lake Como. So I'll ask you, the watershed for Lake Como, there's 3 towns that own Lake Como, but the watershed includes other towns. What towns? Just Wall. And does anyone know how much of the inflow into Lake Como that occurs in a typical storm, how much of that might come in from the Wall part of the watershed?
Let me guess, Gene Corey is the Belmar representative.
It comes from Wall and Spring Lake Heights.
And Spring Lake Heights, yeah.
It goes into the same thing, it gets combined. And then it goes-
Right, but they probably have some idea of how much water.
Yeah, you mentioned the watershed is 948 acres.
Right.
And I bet you Belmar is probably less than an acre.
Right,
Portion.
Yeah, so-
Probably, there's 600 acres to maybe 300 acres.
well, the point I want to make is, yeah, we own the lake according to
Yeah.
some,
No,
but we don't.
We don't own the lake.
Well, according to some, I understand the situation that they're saying Belmar, Lake Como, and Spring Lake own the lake somehow. Some people are saying that, that's what Mike said. But it's contested, I understand that.
No one, Spring Lake doesn't own the lake, we don't own the lake, Lake Como doesn't own the lake. Part of the problem is, no one owns the darn thing. So how do you apply for funding? Who has jurisdiction? That's why we need to do a interlocal
Okay.
agreement and create basically a lake commission. We're really not even a lake, it's a dam.
Okay, well, I did see those 3 towns mentioned under talking about ownership of at least the problem, right?
We certainly have.
Okay, well, we don't know the water that came from Wall and came from Spring Lake Heights, right? So they're sending us their water, right? So, I'm sorry?
It ends up in some people's basements.
That ends up in our basements, yeah, well, not my basement, but I'm concerned about the people down at the town. So, we have absolutely no recourse, like they're paving over, building all the stuff. Their water, instead of going into the ground, is coming down here to Belmar. There's no recourse whatsoever to tell them, hey, you're sending us your water, and it's ending up in our basements,
The recourse is they help pay for the solution.
Well, I think that's exactly right, that they should be drawn into this, because while they don't water the lake, we're getting their water, So, that's what I would like to ask about that. I guess I got time for another question before I have to sit down and get back up again. Okay, the contract with chefs, 3% a year, 24 years. Right now, well, they changed the way they measure inflation. They take out everything that goes up, like energy and food, so they're pretending that there's no inflation, but we all go to the supermarkets and we all see the inflation. During the 70s in the United States, and I have the numbers here, I don't want to bore everybody with them, but inflation was 9% a year, 13% a year. This is the official government inflation numbers. 14% a year. If you want, I forgot to bring my cell phone with me, but these are official government numbers. That there have been periods in recent American history where inflation was running well over 10% a year, close to 15% a year. So, a 24-year period is a long period of time to assume that that's not going to happen again, considering what we're seeing from the Federal Reserve, where they're on a money printing spree, and that's going to catch up with us. Right now it's bottled up in the banks and in treasuries and stuff, but I worry that we're stuck with this 3% a year, and we're going to be experiencing 13% a year inflation, and all of a sudden that's going to seem like a real good deal for chefs. So maybe it should have been tied into the inflation rate instead of a set 3% a year. Got time for another one?
Yeah, 30 seconds. Fire away.
Let me see if I can. Okay, the Silver Lake bond. The Paul Calabrese said his best guesstimate was 1.1 million.
Yeah, we'd rather be more conservative, we're saying 1.8.
And well, that's a pretty big difference. It's like,
Sure is.
so if it ends up being 1.1 million,
Then we'll borrow them.
okay, is that what happened with the beach? Because I'm really still confused about the beach. We originally said we were gonna, okay,
Yeah. In general, that's what happened with any bond. So if we have authorization to go out bond for $10 million, and then we bid the project is like we're gonna bid the pavilion. Bids come back lower than that, you only borrow what the cost of the project is. So it's authorization versus actually going out and floating.
Is that what happened with the $20 million with the beach?
No, we used all.
We
of it.
used all of it, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm gonna come back up. Let somebody else ask some questions, I don't come
What's
back.
that about?
Well, you put it on the agenda, that's not my fault, you know?
We got a lot going on. Yes, Troy, oh yeah. No.
I'm Joy DeSantis, this 101 6th Avenue. I want to know if you retired the entire $9.2 million we got from FEMA.
What?
If you retired it against the bond, or if you did something else with it.
Well, what we're gonna do is, we're bonding in the short term, and we're paying 60 basis points for 1 year. We're gonna take as much money as we get in that 1 year time frame, FEMA, insurance, we get CDBG money, whatever monies we get, and we're gonna just pay down the principal. So after a 12-month period, we'll look to do a long-term bond, 15 and 20 years, depending on what it was used for. So it reduces what the principal's gonna be for the long term.
Why didn't you just retire it? Why didn't you just take the $9.2 million that we were reimbursed on the bond that we took out and paid it down without extending it and using it for something else?
We're not using it for something else. It's gonna reduce what the principal's gonna be for the long-term debt. So in a way, it does retire what you're saying, but typically that's not the right word. It's only a 1 year note, it's not a 15-year bond.
So, just so I understand, you're going to take the $9.2 million and you're going to take all of it and you're going to put it against the 1 year bond note.
Right, and then what happens is, when that note comes due, we're gonna reduce the principal that goes into the 15 or 20-year bond. So short-term money is called notes, long-term money is called bond. So what we're gonna have now is a 1 year note, we're gonna convert that into a 20-year bond. Before we do that, we're gonna pay the principal down on what was originally bond.
I really will have to think about that one. Okay, I got some minutes from one of these beach advisory committee meetings. It was from the February meeting. It says, regarding the 13th Avenue Pavilion, it is not clear to the group whether a second floor will be added to this building. It appears that this building will likely be custom designed for the operator, which will run the building, so design may need to be part of those negotiations. Discussions on liquor license was deferred to council as it is not in the scope of this committee. Is there any possibility you could explain that?
Sure. The committee met January, February, March, April, May, and
This is specifically the February meeting.
I mean, we were still unsure if the town was gonna rebuild 13th Avenue Pavilion. There was a possibility there was gonna be a lend-lease type of program where we kept ownership of the boardwalk and then a private person would build the building. That was the idea back then, but since that, no longer done.
Who was the party with?
No, that was a possibility that we could go in that direction.
There was never a party discussed that it would be with?
Correct.
Never?
No,
Not that you know?
no.
Does anybody
It
know?
was a possibility that that's the way we could do, because rebuilding the other 3 pavilions was gonna cost so much money, we didn't think we could bond enough for a 4th pavilion. So we thought, here's a possibility, a lend-lease thing, a lend-lease program.
But
It didn't fly.
if we were gonna get 90% back at that point, you know, like, we still thought that we were gonna get 90% for these buildings, maybe wasn't even that much.
Well, she's referencing something happened in February, we never thought we'd get 90%.
But 90% of 10 million
You
is
thought we
a
were
lot
gonna
of-
get
still a lot
90%
of money
6.5
we have
weeks ago.
We're trying to save you as much money as we possibly can. And I think you're so, think that we're up here trying to spend your money. When my taxes go up,
We don't have
when
any
your taxes
money
go up,
left.
my taxes go up. We want to do this as inexpensively as we possibly can, but we want to do it right. We're not trying to take your money, Joyce.
And what happened to the discussion on the liquor license? Who's got that?
We don't have a liquor license.
Then why was it
There was a
different?
possibility that if someone was gonna come and build a $5 million building there, because on public property, we could, like we did at the marina, give them a liquor license. I don't want to use the word give, but loan them.
You have
whatever.
that authority because it's a municipal
Right. That
property.
was a possibility. We could do that. It didn't come to be. We moved on to the pavilions.
So this is a dead issue. We will never see a public municipal joint venture on the 13th Avenue.
Never say never.
Yeah, never say never. Thank you. Never say never.
Thank you, Joy.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I don't know about this. Where are we going here? Tom?
Added to the other thing we don't know just tonight. This thing about
Tom Dilber.
Tom Dilberger, 1000 River Road, this is fine, this is fine. Thank you. Claire, we've spoken about that skate park numerous times, but there's another situation I've noticed.
Tell me.
Now, we've covered the, I don't like the place because we're cleaning it up and we were told we weren't gonna clean it up, which is costing money. How much, we don't know. Your beef is that the kids don't wear helmets.
Well, it's a safety issue for me, yes.
Yeah. There's a third element here that I've noticed lately. We got adults in there using skateboards and bikes.
Oh, that's an issue that I've reported many
Now,
times to
well-
the police. Many times.
A good answer, and that we agree, is get rid of the thing. It's nothing but a thorn in our side now.
Tommy, let me just tell you this. When this was established, it was back and forth with Mayor Pringle, and a certain group in the town promised us that the parents were so interested, they would oversee the safety of the children, that we looked at other, and they never committed to that. They gave their word, they were going to have a rotation of some sort. I was concerned about the safety issue from the beginning because I live, I do 16th Avenue up and down to Main Street a lot, and I agree with you. It's I would certainly be in favor of not having it because kids will be kids. As I mentioned once a story about a boy in Villanova who was home on spring break and didn't have his helmet and broke his neck, and he's a paraplegic. You have different issues than I do, but we're agreeing on the idea.
Correct.
Mine is a safety issue. It was from the beginning. When I brought it up, some of my opponents said I was being political. As a teacher and a mother, that was not my concern. They made it sound like I was being, it was a politics thing with me, and it wasn't. It's a big worry to me. It still is. There for a while, I was calling the police on a daily basis. This kid didn't have a helmet, and but there are also parents there with little children who allow them to use scooters on the ramps. Absolutely. So I agree with you. I don't know what we can do about it.
Make a motion to close it down and use the junk, get whatever you can get for it down in Neptune, and sell it off. That's the end.
I will be conferring with our attorney on that.
put a motion on the floor before the council.
I'd have to, yeah, let the lawyer look at it first, where we can go with it. I don't even know who, like the parameters for setting it up, had to do with a group that swore to us that they would oversee it, they never did. So I'll look into it, believe me, but I can't do it tonight because I want to get the lawyer's opinion.
Okay?
See,
I want- yeah.
if we could somehow convince Lake Como they need a skate park, you know, I mean, I'm sure we could donate the equipment to them.
We can make a bonfire on the skid.
That still wouldn't solve the safety, you know, it's a responsibility of each person. You know, we were also criticized terribly, you know, I thought the parents should sign off on it, the chief was on board with it for safety, then I got beat up on that, they didn't want that, and so I lost that battle. So, you know, it's just, it's a tough situation. I'm very, very happy that no one's been injured so far, I don't know, I haven't heard anything, maybe there have been. I hope no catastrophic injury, but I'm on board with it, I'll look into it.
Thank you very much, Clay.
Thank you,
You're
Thomas.
welcome.
All right, folks, we're getting to 10 o'clock.
You know, we have children. First day of school tomorrow. I have a question.
Ray, you haven't spoken yet, I'm sure it's going to be a very important question.
I got to Maria Florio, on this situation here, is it any different than the kids riding in the street without helmets on? I never see the policeman pull them aside. And years ago, we had a policeman, oh my God, what was his name? Tony Alexander, right? Anytime he saw a child without a helmet, he pulled them over, said, tell your mother, go to the police station and pick up your bicycle. You do not have a helmet on.
That's what they do, they collect them.
Well, there's plenty of them. We see it every day going up and down.
Tommy collects, you know, they bring parents in and they collect the skateboards.
Well, I don't know.
The major difference is that when
There's-
when this was put together, we were sold a bill of goods by a group of people who said that they were going to police it, that they were going to ensure.
Well, we have a lot of, as they say, volunteers don't always come through.
And, yep.
Not once did I, in all the years that that's been established, I never saw one parent there. Never.
They built it and left us to deal with the cost.
Yes.
Thank you.
Am I finished?
Well, you said- Mr. Volker. 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock. Before our meeting. Haley doesn't get paid a whole lot to report on these meetings.
Oh, she's 79.
Thank you. Nicely done.
Migraine headache.
She had a.
Tom Booker, 301 4th Avenue, Belmar. Regarding the skate park, you've got to have supervision there. You've got a tremendous liability. I think you've got a tremendous liability. The police, they will shut it down 4 or 5 days. The kids come back, they don't wear their helmets, they're using bikes, they were there yesterday. Got a tremendous liability. I'd hate to see it shut down because my grandson loves it, but I don't think you got a choice. Unless that group that set it up, which was nice of them to do, are willing to set up some kind of a volunteer program and stick to it. It's got to have supervision, or, you know, it's amazing that nothing's happened so far.
Tom, I went through this as recreation director. Ironically, if you have a supervisor there, and someone does something wrong, supervisor is liable. You increase your liability. If you post rules and there's no supervision there, then the skateboarder is more responsible. So really, the liability is less by not having a supervisor there.
Well, Brian, I think you still got the liability, I really do.
But
And somebody's going to get hurt.
Well, you don't want to have a supervisor there and someone does something silly all of a sudden, and now that supervisor is being sued.
Then you got to shut it down.
No.
I mean, you got to come up with the alternative. If that doesn't work, you got to have the alternative, and if it isn't feasible, then you have to shut it down. Another subject, Councilman Beam suggested that on the issue of the pavilions, that we should let people vote on it. In my opinion, we have already voted
We voted for you, all 5 of you. And we respect your opinion. So I salute you for not shirking your responsibility on that issue. Thank you.
Paul Carew, 110 4th Avenue. Great beach season. I spend a lot of time on the beach. People love it. I love the people, the kids are having a great time. Good job. Have a recommendation, question for the police officer here. On our parking, I noticed we have the new system there. A lot of people don't know about the new system. And there's some real ticket writing going on there. I don't think there's enough notification to the people where they parked, and they know they have to go to the little side or whatever it is to do it. All I think you need to do is put some signs up and say metered parking, point in a direction towards it, and let them know. I mean, they're innocent.
Well, it's on the sign on the highway, the light-up sign that was there. And not to talk out of line, but I travel everywhere. If I see numbers in the streets, first thing that will click in my head, something isn't right here, because every other street there's free parking, there's no numbers. There's the meters there, it's been advertised enough, you see people paying, I mean, I think the public are pretty aware that they have to pay.
The ones in the cities are, but tonight I sat and was having dinner in one of our local restaurants, and 10 cars in a row got tickets. People are on the beach. It's late, you know, it's after 5 o'clock, there's nobody taking beach badges. All I'm saying is advise them. And by the way, is it year-round?
No.
Because that's not advertised either. You don't say when it's valid and when it isn't. I think they need to know that. Another thing, right down there by Taylor Tent, let's call it, I noticed that they took the crosswalks off at 5th Avenue. There's only one crosswalk instead of 2, painted over. So I guess the idea was to funnel them across the street and then go, but that's not right. I mean, people are crossing the street without the benefit of protection of crosswalks. And that's where all the traffic, that's where all the people park around Silver Lake.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's only one crosswalk there. So I'd like to see that addressed, if you don't mind. Any place. There should be crosswalks in every corner for safety's sake. Thank you. And I'm sorry people have to ask you the same question over and over again, and they don't hear your answers.
Thank you. All right, we're going to end on the Villanova Wildcat. Only because you had a good idea.
Yeah, well, I have another good idea too, but one quick comment.
But his name and address for her.
Yep, Paragano, 7th Avenue. You're talking about the water and what's going on with, trying to, I guess, the impervious surface all running into the storm drain system. Why don't you guys require, and I asked the engineering department, look into putting cisterns in on any new homes built, because that'll take all the roof runoff, run into a central vat. And we're very blessed in this town with a sandy type of material. You line the outside of the vat's got holes in it, you line the outside of the vat with stone and a little fabric, and all that water will permeate into the ground and it won't hit the storm drain system to fill up. You can require that in any new home built.
Yeah, and I would tell you, not that we would be opposed to it, and it would, but it would have a marginal effect because, as Dave mentioned before, there's so much that comes in from Walls, so Sterling Heights.
Yeah, I know.
We're a very small part of the water that goes into Lake Como, but just where our houses sit, when that thing overflows, it goes right into Belmar, then it goes to Lake Como, then it goes to Spring Lake. We send the least water in, but we're the first ones to flood and get the most water.
Oh, no, I understand, but it's like pulling the garage forward. It's the same type of a thing. The less impervious you have, every little thing you do, and let me tell you, from a builder's perspective, it's not that much cost. And I'm doing this out on 5 acres in the middle of Morris County, and they're requiring us to do it. We're stuck here with no room. It did make a lot of sense to just look into it. Thank you.
All right, David.
They're free to go home. I'm not keeping them. I'm keeping you here. Let me
Is that my free to go?
They can go home anytime they want, right?
All right.
You have to say.
We'll end on David.
No. I've been going out, it's no secret, I've been going out. David Schnack, 302 C Street. Okay, it's no secret, I've been going out talking to folks and stuff, it's that time of year. And I want to give them accurate information. I get a lot of questions about the debt and which branches of the government it's in. I want to give out accurate information. I don't want to be found out, called a liar or whatever, so I want the accurate numbers here. The school debt is $3 million right now, right, roughly? That hasn't changed, right? Okay, so is this the kind of questions I should, like the water and sewer utility? I looked at a debt statement from December 2012, it was 5.4 million. We added another 5, right? So it's 10.4, is that right?
Well, maybe
Is this-
down, so.
Without that statement in front of me, I don't want to.
Okay, can I just email you and ask you this instead of, okay, thank you.
All right, on that note, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I just want to say, I hope that everyone supports our San Gennaro activities this weekend. The Mass and the procession at St. Rose. The Mass is at 10 o'clock, the procession will follow. Please try to make the Mass.
And the cow.